In recent times, some journalists have had to face the law in connection with the publication of false news or made statements deemed untrue in the line of duty. While many have questioned whether or not the police is misapplying the publication of false news law in causing these arrests, others think free speech is not so free. Eunice Ossei has more on this story.
The publication of false news law, according to the 1960 Constitution of Ghana, Section 208, Act 29, is any publication which is false or untrue and has the intent to cause fear and alarm to the public. The law has been in existence since 1960, but recently has seen several applications of the law. Some journalists have also been arrested and charged by the police for false publications. This has brought about several calls to repeal or amend the publication of the false news law. Advocates are of the view the law has outlived its usefulness, but legal practitioner lawyer Justice Abdulai believes the publication of false news law is still useful. He however said application of the law is the problem.
I do not think it has outlived its usefulness, but I think it is the target of the application of the law that is now being misused. Because the law is quite wide in its scope and application, it allows a misuse of it. So if you have any ordinary person with authority to enforce the law, whether by way of the executive, any member of the executive, whether the president, vice president, or ministers of state, or any of the security agencies who would want to misuse this law, you could find yourself in a deeper trouble.
He again argues that there should be a conversation on the law so that it can be enforced in the right context.
And I believe it's the reason why now everybody is calling for either an amendment or a repeal or a conversation around this provision, so that we can put it in context and enforce it within that context. Because it appears that now the way it's being used, even unintended, now we are suffering from the unintended consequences.
Meanwhile, journalist Nathan Gadugah says journalists must be responsible with their reportage.
Journalists have a right to practice their profession, but at the same time, they ought to practice this profession guided by the laws of reasonability, guided by the laws of responsibility, not to defame people, not to cause fear and alarm.
He also added that court is the right authority to determine if a publication is false or not.
Ultimately, it is the courts that will determine that this issue is false and the person who published that false news should be dealt with. Ultimately, the courts can determine that. But as the police who are prosecuting the case, you must have some prima facie evidence to show that indeed this is false.
While the public continue to debate whether or not to repeal the publication of false news law, some media experts want people to be more cautious of what they say or post on social media. They again advocate journalists must apply the ethics and essence of journalism, which thrives on verifying the information before publishing.